And I'm the Director of Media for TAPS. Thank you for joining us today for our cross-country preseason meeting. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes with our presentation, but first I got a couple of housekeeping items to address. So first things first, this webinar is being recorded. You will receive an email tomorrow to the account that you used to register for today's webinar with a link to that recording and a link to any handouts that we've got. We've got so many webinars this week, it's just taking us a little bit longer to get them processed and get them uploaded and ready to go. So thank you for your patience there. Second, if you have questions, please use the questions feature in the GoToWebinar interface. We're going to try to answer those as we go through the presentation, but if we don't get to yours right away, don't worry, there's a kind of a general Q&A question, general Q&A session at the end. But if email is easier for you, you can send any questions to info@taps.biz during the webinar. We're going to keep an eye on that and we'll pass those questions on to our presenters. But if we don't get to your question today, or if it's just too specific to answer in this venue, please send us an email at info@taps.biz or call us at the office after the webinar is over. Third, you may hear us reference some handouts today. If you look at the little handouts tab in the GoToWebinar interface, you'll see some PDFs. The one in there right now is the certificate of completion for this session. If in case you need to document continuing education hours, click on that. It's going to open in your browser. You can download that. You can also have time to do that at the end. If you have any trouble, please let me know. Okay, joining us today from the TAPS office is Brian Bunselmeyer, the TAPS Executive Director, Robert Huckabee, Associate Director and Director of Compliance, and Steve Prudhomme, TAPS Associate Director also. We've got Will Dixon, who's in charge of our live broadcasts. He's helping us out behind the keyboard today. Before I hand it over to Brian, though, I've got a couple of quick questions for everybody here. First things first, we'd like to know what your school's TAPS classification is. What is your role on your campus? All right, I'm going to close this poll and hand it over to Brian.
I want to thank you all for joining us here today. This is the third and fourth in a series of webinars to get us started back into 2020. I know there was a lot of concern yesterday with what was going on in the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, and then the Big 12 down here actually jumped out and said they're going to keep going for football. It is a strange time indeed. It is a carryover from the spring where unknown seems to be in larger amounts than the known. But we are continuing with our plans to have cross-country return in 2020. We've moved some dates around to try to accommodate other activities and to give us the longest possible season. So as we go through today, again, John mentioned it, but if you have questions, please reach out on the questions tab, or if you feel more comfortable or need to email us at info@taps.biz, info@taps.biz, please do so. We'll try to get all of your questions answered as best we can. We can tell you the solid concrete truth as we know it today. And it may change 5 minutes after we get off the webinar, but we're going to give you what we know at this time. And we, again, appreciate you for joining us here today. And we'll jump into some quick dates. So, Robert, let us know what's going on the date and calendar front.
All right. Thank you, Brian. As we start the season and as we start this year in this webinar, we're going to go through some basic stuff here in the beginning for a few minutes. And then we'll jump in the second half. We'll jump to the things that are changes and things we need to visit and look at affected by COVID that we need to address as we roll through the cross-country season. First, looking at our TAPS dates that are coming up, important dates. As you know, as we roll through the summer, we were in summer rules throughout the summer. That was up to your local discretion and control at your school in terms of what you did and how extensive that was. And then prior to September 7 will be the official kickoff of our fall activities. But prior to that, you're still in summer rules until you begin school. Once you begin school, you'll still be in summer rules with regard to hours of contact with your athletes. That's a max of 3 per day and 15 per week. But once you begin school, you can begin to make those workouts mandatory. So that's really the big difference between prior to starting school and then once you begin school, you'll move from voluntary to a mandatory format with regard to your workouts. And then up until, no matter when you start school, up until September 7, no interscholastic competition. Practices should be limited to your local control, what you're doing at your school. No dual or tri meets and no meets until we roll into that week of September 7. And as we move into those important dates. September 7, that's first day of practice for all of our fall activities. September 10, that will be your first day for interscholastic competition. You can begin meets at that time. October 5, we visited with Tom Hill again recently. At this time, the Cottonwood Creek Invitational, which he started last year, kind of a preview meet, that is still on board as we sit here today. There may be changes to that, and certainly we'll let you know. October 12, we'll be doing a championship information webinar. At that point, we'll be hosting another webinar. We'll begin to share championship information for you in more detail. October 26 is our entry deadline for our state meet. Our state meet is currently scheduled for November 2nd. Our hope is that we're back at Cottonwood again. And of course, with all of our host facilities as we move throughout this year, we are sensitive to what they are and are not able to do in their particular communities. So we'll keep you posted of any changes in that respect. And then November 12th, that'll be our cross-country academic all-state deadline to get those nominations in for your athletes that would qualify. Next thing we're going to jump into, next topic will be rules and governance. Obviously, we have TAPS rules that apply to cross country, and then of course the NFHS rules. So Brian, share some thoughts with us on that.
We're just going to jump out and go pretty quick from looking at the opportunities here. A lot of you probably already know the TAPS rules, but we'll hit them as best we can. So we're going to jump down to what is interscholastic competition. That's your school and another school. In this case, that'd be a dual try or a full meet. If you want to go work out with somebody, that's not considered interscholastic competition. That's a workout. So two schools want to combine, give you somebody else to race against in practice. That's perfectly all right. Interscholastic opportunities in this case for cross country are going to be in person. I know there were some folks down in the southeast that were looking to do some virtual options, some meets to go out and run the course, time it, etc. in a virtual fashion. That would still be interscholastic competition from a standpoint of two schools competing, but a lot of the rules that we're going to have as far as contact and social distancing would not apply. So one thing that comes up every year is how many meets can I run in? The UIL and other organizations have restricted those numbers. We do not. You can run in a meet every day if you want. You want to do a meet instead of practice. I think from what I'm hearing right now, you're going to be hard pressed to find very many meets at all, but you could run and do them on a different basis. Section 85, as we go through here, this question comes up every year. I have the fastest 7th grader or 8th grader in Texas, and why can't they run with high school? It's because Section 85 of the TAPS bylaws says they can't. Junior high is for junior high, so they cannot, junior high student cannot compete with or against high school programs or high school students. So that means the 7th grade girl that's run the fastest time in her age division cannot run in the junior varsity or in the varsity of any meet. It needs to be running in junior high competitions if they're interscholastic. So again, races in competition between two schools are interscholastic. This would not include AAU or any runners clubs, et cetera, meets. At that point, they can run age group or age specific. So again, junior high kids, keep them on the junior high level. Don't run them with your big ones. Section 140-54 is the local control. Again, how many meets you run's up to you. We don't restrict whether you can run after the state meet either. So I don't know what's going to happen on the national front. We've in the past had folks compete in the Nike Foot Locker South, et cetera. I've heard things that's not happening, or it may happen, or it's going to be different. But obviously, we would want our students to be able to represent, and you wanted to represent your school. So we do not restrict as we do in team sports. So once the season's over at the state meet, they can still keep running for your school. Eligible opponents, who can you invite? You can invite, or you can go run with homeschool programs, affiliated leagues. Those are all in Section 138, eligible opponents. You're not allowed to have, if you host a meet, you're not allowed to have schools that are independent by nature. They don't belong to a league or from unapproved leagues. So 138, go to www.taps.biz, jump over to resources, hover over that. You'll go to bylaws, scroll all the way down to 138. It's the longest section of the TAPS bylaws, and you'll look at eligible opponents, and it'll tell you who you can. It doesn't tell you who you can't, it tells you who you can run against. So you can do the math and do the numbers that way. So basically that's where we're headed right there. One of the things that we're going to do this year, based on the number of folks I've heard that cannot find a meet or finding very few meets, if you'll include us at TAPS Cross Country, and I think instead of the word cross, I think it's actually an X. I'll make sure we get that. John can follow that up at the end of the day. But if you've got a meet, if you're hosting a meet, if you're looking for folks to come, or you know of a place to run, please include TAPS Cross Country as well on our Twitter feed as you tweet out where you're headed, so that hopefully others can enjoy that as well. We're also going to, on the TAPS, Will, if you would do me a favor and jump over to the TAPS website real quick. So www.taps.biz is the TAPS website. Go hover over and go to athletics, which is on the left-hand side. For those of you watching online, drop down to cross country. It's the first one in the blue under fall. And then in the menu bar, it does say invitational meets. And right now, if you click on that, I do not think there's any listed. So if you have an invitational meet, or if you know of somebody that's hosting a meet or whatever, if you would help out all of our other cross-country coaches and send that information to info, I-N-F-O, at taps.biz, info at taps.biz. If you have cross-country meet information that you think would help others in finding meets, please email us at info@taps.biz, and Kelly Bay here in our office will get that listed on that invitational meets page as soon as possible. So pretty much gets us through the TAPS rules. We don't have a whole lot to go over, but we're going to go over some NFHS rules. One of the biggest ones that we struggle with every year is going to be the uniform rules, and they haven't changed for a while, so we're just going to jump right to those. When I look at TAPS section 155, one of the things that TAPS does not allow is you can't wear closed leg briefs, spandex, or summer construction leggings unless they have modesty shorts over the top. So if you've been watching college runners, and especially the ladies, they're wearing the tight, more like volleyball closed leg briefs. They're not allowed. They're allowed to wear them, but they have to have modesty shorts over the top. So I don't know that they're gaining what they were looking to gain in that point. And again, it applies to all competitors, male and female. And I'm just going to throw that bottom one in. It's on a couple of slides. While you're in the meet area, competitors shall not remove their tops, mainly a gentleman's opportunity, and keep your uniform on. So guys running bare-chested on their warm-ups or on Sunday during the walkthrough, let's please do not do that. So we want to make sure that we are going to get there and keep everybody as clothed as possible, for lack of a better way of saying it. The next slide up there is going to be the National Federation. I have been asked go back up one, Will. I've been asked every year by somebody, do we have to wear shoes? And the answer is yes. National Federation rules require you to wear shoes, wear a school-based uniform. There's not a lot of detail. They can wear the singlet. We've got some running in a t-shirt, but it identifies your school. Knotted tops used to be a problem. Haven't seen it as much in recent years, but it is a National Federation rule that you're not allowed to do that. When standing straight up, your tops must hang below the waistband. So for our young ladies, that means the shorter tops or whatever are not allowed, and you can't knot them. So again, when they come to the starting line and Raymond or whoever calls them to the line, they've got to be in uniform. And removing any part of the uniform is considered illegal. So if you start with it, you need to finish with it unless your shoes get stuck in the mud, which on a couple of opportunities a few years back out at the airport, that happened quite frequently, where we had a one-shoe finish. So of course that was not going to be held. So again, the TAPS uniform rules and the National Federation rules, they dovetail really well together. Not a lot of things that you're going to have to worry too much about as you go forward, but we do want to bring them up if you're still ordering uniforms or have a little bit more to go. The penalty for wearing an illegal uniform is the coach is going to be served and noted that you are in an illegal uniform. The student would still, for the most part, be able to finish unless it was a flagrant violation. The referee will notify another meet official, etc. From our standpoint, we're not going to take a very good light to that. We've already told you what the uniform is, so do me a favor, do us a favor, do yourself a favor. Let's be in uniform compliance this year. When we look at the changes, the only two changes to the National Federation rules that are really consistent is assisting the runner. So in years past, you weren't eligible to help someone when they went down. And I think that that's an interesting conversation to have. I think that we are able to help pass, so the person that's helping is not going to be disqualified. And then course markings and clarification. So if you're really into the nitty gritty, jump in, grab your National Federation rule book for this year, and away we'll go.
All right, thanks, Brian. A reminder, if you have questions, type those in that questions bar on your GoToMeeting. On the right there, you'll see that. Type those questions in. We do have one question. We're finding many of the UIL meets are limited or locked out. They do have some limitations. We are aware of that. We've heard that. We've had many conversations. It may be a challenge, as Brian mentioned, to find meets this year. Some of the suggestions we've made to some who have called is several of you may want to try to get together and do a meet together. It's not easy to put one on, but it may be worth it, the effort that's involved in your particular area. If you've been around, you know those schools in your area that have great cross-country programs. Coaches have been doing this for a long time. So this is a year where you might have to get a little creative. You might have to get out of the box a little bit and do some things to provide those opportunities that were always there pretty easily in the past, but they may not be going forward. That's all the questions we have now. If we get more, we'll jump to those when we can. If not, we'll try to get to as many as we can at the end of the webinar. We're going to shift gears now, talk a little bit about eligibility, all the things you need to do to have your coaches and all your runners eligible to participate this year. Steve?
Yes, it's important that you use the Rank 1 system and get everything done, especially while we have this extra time. Make sure that all the coaches are in, your assistant coaches, and also you athletic directors out there. We need to make sure they're marked for everything that they do. So if they're assistant cross country, head track, or whatever they are, assistant football, and they're in tennis, make sure that we get every single event that they're involved in as a staff member into Rank 1, and we have the right contact information. This will create a coach's profile. They'll have their own account. They need to complete all the pertinent information. Make sure that they go through and do all the professional acknowledgement of rules, complete scope, and that is, again, inside the coach's account. And in that account, you also have Coach's Toolkit, which has a lot of very helpful items in there that you can use and go to as a resource, and make sure that you're turned green as a staff member. And again, anybody that's helping with your program, volunteers paid or not paid, look at the definition of coach and make sure that you have them in the Rank 1 database. Next up is the students. The students all have to be eligible as well, and that's eligibility is part of what TAPS is oversees and what you're responsible for. So make sure that all the students are into Rank 1. A little different starting last year. The family has to open an account with Rank 1. There's a student profile that's filled out inside the student account, and if they'll follow through that student profile, it will take them wherever they need to be. The acknowledgement of rules, it'll take them to the medical information with the medical history they can fill out online, and then the physical, which they need to upload into the system. Now this year, UIL said they were not going to require physicals. TAPS is going to require physicals for this school year, but we'll give a little grace because of what's going on in the pandemic and the difficulty getting to a doctor, and we say get the physical in as soon as you can. In the interim, if you have an individual that says, hey, we're trying to get our physical, what do I do to get them to turn green in the interim? And that is you can upload the most recent physical that they have as a placeholder, and then when they do get that physical, which you are going to stay on them with, then you will go ahead and upload that. Obviously, if they're coming back from a catastrophic injury or whatever, they need clearance, you would want a physical before that. Make sure the doctor's clearances are all in place for that. And then all the school-based forms are there. It also has triggers inside there. So if they're a transfer or they're not living with parent, or if there's a necessity for an additional form, the Rank 1 system will automatically bring that up, and they will be red until they get all the forms in to where they're green. And at that point, you'll be able to move them into entries and to do some other things. Also, don't assume because they're red, there's some sort of malfunction in the system. We had a coach do that one year, and they said, I just thought the computer was messed up, and they went ahead and put a kid into an event, not cross country, and it caused all sorts of problems. So call the office, get with our ladies here. Kelly and Rhonda will help you through that, but make sure you get those students in, and at their transfers, just as soon as you can get that form done, push them to get all that information in.
All right, thanks, Steve. We'll jump next to rosters. You need a roster for your cross-country athletes. You'll create that team in Rank 1. You'll create your cross-country team if it hadn't been done already. And then once that is done, you build your roster. You'll pull up your list of students at your school. You'll add those to that cross-country roster. As you add those, you'll notice they're either red or green, and they're red or green based on whether they've got all their forms and information completed in Rank 1. If so, they'll be green. If not, they'll be red. If they are red, you'll be able to tell what they're missing, and you can follow up with that. They need to be green. They need to be good to go eligibility-wise before they participate in any meets. Before we jump to a sponsor role here, Steve, we're going to grab a couple of questions that have come in. Brian, can you jump in and grab a couple of those?
So one of the questions would the Cottonwood Creek invitation will be on October 5th, still be on Cottonwood Creek, and will it be on the evening? After our long discussions with Tom yesterday, it will be in the Waco area if it's eligible to be held. Right now, McLennan County and the city of Waco are not allowing those types of gatherings, so he may have to go outside of McLennan County to find some place to run, but his goal is to have it there in Central Texas. Another question was the UIL is allowing 10 runners. We're not the UIL, we're TAPS. If you're talking about the state meet, we're still going to have 7 runners on a team. If you're talking about an invitational meet, that's totally up to the host to determine how many folks they want to allow. Again, another question, the UIL has restrictions to when we host an hour between races. We don't govern individual invitational meets. So I would say that the UIL probably has a very good guideline I would use, but I would use it as a guideline, not as a mandate. Again, we don't govern invitational meets. That would be up to you. I would, however, consult your local governance, whatever your local county judge, health authority has said about outdoor gatherings. Are you limited to 10? Are you limited to 100? If you have to go over 100, do you have to get a special permission to do it? There's different rules applying to different competitions. So how many teams can come? Again, multiply, number times 7 or number times 10. If you get over 100, again, that seems to be a common number of how many folks that you can have before you have to do anything special across the state. We had a question, do we have a limitation on number of teams we have in a meet? We don't govern that because it's an invitational meet. But again, I think you need to do the math and figure out if you're bringing JV and varsity and boys and girls, your number is going to add up really quick. Are you going to allow spectators to come? So again, be in compliance with your local and state governance as far as that is concerned. And we've got one last question. It says, when will TAPS have cross-country districts drawn up? TAPS does not govern district cross-country. There is no plan in the TAPS manual for districts. Over the years, and this is my 25th year in TAPS, especially in cross-country, our basketball district always held a district meet, but there is no official TAPS district meet in cross-country. We host the state championships. Those will be on November 2nd. So Steve, lead us away.
Yeah, that district meet, that is up to your district because it's an all comers at the state level, and it's a spectacular 1,500 runner meet, one of the best I've ever seen. But moving on to our sponsor, everybody was kind of hit with COVID. All of a sudden we had this budgetary item of PPE and all these other items and sanitizers that we had to have, and nobody was ready for it. You didn't have people to go to, but we have a sponsor here, Reveal Medical, which was also Reveal Suits, and we've gotten with them and rank 1 to give you an opportunity to get affordable PPE and to be able to get it at the quantities and the price that you need. And again, the CEO you're going to hear right here, Carlton Dixon, if you're a basketball fan, he's an ex-Longhorn basketball player, but Carlton's going to tell you a little bit about his offer.
Hello, my name is Carlton Dixon. I'm the proud founder and CEO of Reveal Medical Incorporated. We're definitely very excited to be partners with TAPS, prestigious schools, well-known schools, awesome institutions, and we're just proud to be affiliated, proud to be a resource of PPE for their students, their staff, parents even. We definitely are excited about aligning ourselves with such a great organization as TAPS. Very familiar with them, growing up in the Dallas area, familiar with a lot of the TAPS schools and being a former athlete and coach. Just very well aware of its reputation. That makes it, all the more worthwhile to be affiliated. We are excited about our offerings of PPE, including but not limited to disposable face masks, KN95 masks, hand sanitizer, gloves, face shields, you name it. If it's in the PPE industry, we are able to supply and provide it. We've been fortunate to provide PPE packages and kit to some of our collegiate partners as well, the Naval Academy and entire Conference USA, which is a partner of ours as well. So we definitely envision providing the same level of service and the same level of product to our TAPS institution. We are able to provide kits customized to how the institutions need particular items. We can package masks and gloves and sanitizer, or we can package gloves, face shields, and thermometers. Very customizable going through us. We also have the ability, and this is kind of a byproduct of what the Reveal brand is about, our ability to customize with officially licensed logos. We do that in our collegiate and professional athletics world on our suit side, and we're able to do that on our PPE side as well. If that was ever a request or a desire for any institution, we can most certainly provide. Please go visit our website, Reveal Medical Inc. That is revealmedicalinc.com. or any of our social media pages at Reveal Medical, and of course at Reveal Suits as well, which is also part of the Reveal brand. And we are, again, just excited to be a part of the TAPS family, and we look forward to working with their awesome institutions.
We thank Reveal Medical, and the promo code is going to be TAPS, TAPPS. We don't have a great imagination, but if you'll do that, you'll get your special deal, and also we'll be able to keep an accounting of what we're getting from Reveal Medical and what you're getting from Reveal Medical. So hopefully we're working on a page that we're going to be putting on the website that will have COVID-related products such as sanitizers, PPE, and various things. And so hopefully we'll be able to get a list of vendors to help you along the way and something that you're not used to doing every single year. Now I'm going to hand it over to Brian for communication and a couple of questions.
We're going to bounce back on the questions real quick about this district opportunity. This is the first year of the new alignment. 2022 is the new alignment period we're in. COVID has, after we had to leave last spring, a lot of our track, tennis, and golf and other opportunities, those districts did not finalize. They did not get to participate. We've asked for our participation forms to be back in by September 1st. So whether you use your track district as a cross-country district, whether you use your basketball or your football district, to be honest with you, we're not going to know until after September 1st who's going to participate in cross country and who is not. And that sounds kind of strange, but we are seeing a decrease in the number of events people are looking to participate in this year, whether it's COVID related or maybe they just don't have the numbers. I don't know. We haven't had the time to do a deep dive into it. But after September 1, then when you go to the TAPS website and you look at the alignments for the classifications, they'll be updated with everybody that has signed on. So give us till September 1, 2, or 3. Give us a chance to get the participation contracts in. We'll have a little bit more of a deeper dive that we can perform at that time and let you know what's going on. So again, keep the questions coming. We'll keep going back to them as best we can. No questions too small, none too large. We'll try to answer what we can as we go forward. So we're going to jump into communication real quick. Let you know the TAPS channels of communication. So we've got the website, www.taps.biz. We've got the cross-country page. On that cross-country page, you'll see the blog. So every email we send out also becomes a post in that blog. So every now and then jump back over to the website and look at that blog if you would. That blog's also will announce things of importance, deadlines, etc. Our emails, we can only send an email to the account that you have in rank 1. So make sure on your rank 1 profile, you have the accurate email. Make sure all the letters are correct in the proper order. We have a couple of sometimes if you type like I do, you put the letters in a bad order and your email doesn't work anymore. Rank 1 push notifications, we have used that in the past. We may again, you'd get an email that basically says go to your rank 1 profile and there's information for you there, and then our social media account again. Taps.biz or TAPS.biz is our main account, and then TAPS Cross Country. So as your runners do get out there, as you get awards, as you place, as you do good things over the cross country season, please ensure that we get a little copy of that as well. Include us at TAPS Cross with the X Cross Country. So those are the lines of communication. That's what we're going to look to move forward to, thinking that will help us as we go forward, help us to help you. And as always, I'll throw it out there again. Contact us, info at taps.biz, or our phone number here at the office. It's going to be showing up later on, 254-947-9268. We're here to help you, so we want to make sure that things go forward. So, Will, what's next on our hit parade here? So the TAPS website for the TAPS rules, you go to the TAPS website. We'll just hang over there for a couple of minutes. You're going to go to the TAPS website. Again, there's your cross-country page. Your important dates are showing there, your rules, the alignment we discussed in a question. When you pull down over that, Will, just hover over alignment for me. Those will all be updated by September 1st or 2nd as our contracts come in. over to the right-hand side in green, it says cross country meets. That's where we're going to be putting the emails and the posts that we do for you. And then there's TAPS cross country down there, so you can see what's coming on the tweets. We will have our championship information updated. I think it's going to be a live link right now. We're planning to go back to Cottonwood with a little bit more on that in a few minutes. But that is the TAPS cross country page. If you go up there, Will, and hover over resources, just on that page right there, any page, hover over resources, go to bylaws. That's where you're going to find the TAPS bylaws. It takes a while to load, but if you ever want to just read through them, it's been a good afternoon of fun, enticing reading. Go to TAPS bylaws. So that's where we were on that one. So bounce back. And Robert, we have any questions, or is there anything else that we need to look at before we move forward?
I think we're good on questions right now. We'll catch them more as we walk through. Next thing we're going to do is kind of be at a point here where we'll jump to some of the health and safety protocols for you to help you in the world of cross country. Brian's going to visit with us about some of the communication that needs to happen between the schools as you enter into the meet season.
So as you look to host a championship, or at TAPS as we host our championship, pre-meet communication is going to be very intense on the COVID side. So this year, all teams that are coming to your meet, regardless of whether that is as a host or whether they're coming, they're going to be required to do a pre-game, pre-meet communication. Part of that is going to be that you have to certify and affirm that all of your coaches, runners, managers, trainers, and other team personnel are symptom-free on the morning of the contest or in compliance with the COVID contact guidelines. So if you're leaving on the bus like I used to at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning to get to a cross-country meet, and now a lot of y'all are running afternoon meets, all that makes it a lot easier. But all the coaches that you're going to have with you, your runners, your managers, your extra folks, the trainers, anybody that's there, you're going to have to make sure that you affirm that they are COVID-free, symptom-free. And then if you're hosting a meet, that would obviously be anybody that's coming to you is going to affirm those same things. So if you're going to host an 8-team meet, then you're going to anticipate that 7 coaches are going to send you an email that morning or the day of the meet saying that everybody they're bringing is COVID-free. Well, what does that mean, COVID-free, or what am I attesting to? So Robert, it's a lot of words written up there on the screen. Help us to understand a little more basic concept.
All right, thank you, Brian. What we're saying here is basically for everybody's peace of mind, TAPS has established a minimum that will be required of our schools when they're involved in any kind of interscholastic competition. For team sports, that would be a scrimmage or a game or a tournament. For you, that would be meets you go to, that would be duels or tries that you might agree to do. If you're interacting with another school, certainly all of our schools have talked about protocols they have in place. Some involve taking temperature and those kinds of things. What we're saying is for TAPS purposes, for things hosted by a TAPS member school, then there is a minimum that everybody participating, both sides, all schools, all participants, coaches, anybody involved has to self-screen. And the schools need to share the affirmation, the evidence of that, that on the day of the meet, everybody participating has self-screened. What does that mean? A positive affirmation that they don't have COVID, they're not lab confirmed with it, nor have they had close contact with any individual who is lab confirmed. So there are some schools that might do things that are maybe more restrictive than that. That's a minimum standard that we've established so that all of our schools participating will know what the expectation is. If you're hosting a meet or if you're attending a meet, you can expect, if it's hosted by a TAPS member school, this will be required so that everybody walking in will know that for that day, we're all good to go and we believe we're good.
So along that same line, we're fortunate at Cottonwood Creek that if we are able to go back there, we've got the fence, and when the parents or when the spectators come in, we can have them do a similar affirmation, or we can have your coaches just drop off your card when your team shows up. Not everybody's going to be that way. A lot of places you run are going to be wide open spaces. You may or may not be able to, but you also needed to have the same affirmation reaching back out towards your fan base as you go there as well. So know that we don't have the limitation on the number of teams that could come if you host. I think this is a great opportunity. Embrace our challenges and recognize our opportunities. While there's a little more legwork to be done here, this is a great opportunity for our TAPS coaches to show out and lead the way as we go forward in this meet season.
All right, thank you, Brian. We'll move now to some more specific health and safety protocols. Obviously, these are initiated by the COVID-19 changes we're all experiencing right now, and look at how does this impact my particular program. Steve, talk to us about practices.
Practices are left up to local control. And what TAPS officially says is we expect there to be a protocol in place decided upon by the school and followed by the school. So it needs to be something that's been written, that's been shared, and that is followed. But again, practices are up to you at your level, depending on your region, depending on your campus. And again, make sure that you're following that. Now, when there's a contest, when there's a meet, when there's an interscholastic competition, now you're intersecting with other schools, and that activates these bare minimum standards really that TAPS has set forth for our meets to make sure that we follow these protocols, we get these affirmations going. So the moment you step off your campus and compete with another, you at least have to abide by these bare minimum standards.
All right, thank you, Steve. Let's jump into some personal protective equipment.
Before we go there, Robert, let's jump back, because in the team sports, we had the team sending an email back and forth that they were good to go. We have a sample of that email posted on the website. Can you help folks find that so that they can see what kind of communication we're talking for prior to the meet?
Sure we can. Will, if you'll jump to the TAPS website, we posted some general protocols last Friday on the 7th that applied to some just general expectations. If you go to the TAPS website and you look there on TAPS in the news, when you see TAPS 2020 Return to Action pop up in that post, click on that one. And then right there in the middle, it says Fall 2020 Return to Action. That's an 18-page document that has a lot of good information, just basic information about expectations, protocols, some of the COVID and CDC guidelines that are in place. We'll just keep on scrolling. You get down toward the end, the last 2 or 3 pages. We're getting close. There's some fan things that are in place right there. On page 16, this is a sample communication. This was created with the expectation that 2 teams might be playing a volleyball or a football or a fall soccer game as we come into the fall activities. This could be used for any contest or any meet. It's very generic, but basically the home team, the person hosting the meet, you would be attesting that all your coaches and participants have met those self-screening conditions. In addition, any officials involved, the meet sponsor would be responsible to make sure the officials are making those same affirmations, and that is repeated there. And if you scroll on down, Will, the next one is a sample of the visiting team. Obviously, you're not hosting it, so you're just attesting that your coaches and your athletes are good to go for that particular event.
So I guess a long way of saying here, Robert, we're saying you could do a Google form if you wanted to send that out. You could do an email me form. You could do a ticket. You could do these emails right here and just say, hey, coach, send me this email so that I know, or have them sign it when they get there, that everybody was good that day before they went. I think that would be good. And I guess this is also where you have the other additional information we're going to talk about pretty quick, isn't it? Or are we going to jump ahead?
We are. Well,
okay.
If we'll jump back to our presentation, we're talking about personal protective equipment. We're going to talk about face coverings for contest personnel, what's required if you're a manager, a trainer, if you're a student not participating in an activity. This goes to fans as well. You are required to wear a face mask. This is consistent with a lot of guidelines that are out there now. This is consistent with the latest executive orders from the governor's office. What's recommended? Coaches, you're recommended. That's based on some local control issues you might be dealing with in your area as well. And competitors, when you're not competing, that would be when you're coming and going to the meet, when you're in those situations. When you're competing and participating in the contest, you're not required to wear a mask. If you choose to, it's certainly permissible. And with regard to gloves, another form of PPE, obviously athletic trainers would wear gloves. They're used to that. That's a part of their normal routine.
So part of this is, what am I going to do while the meet's going on? But the other part that comes to my mind are, what are we going to do in the team area? So while you're out there on the course, you're an active participant, you're doing your warm up, your cool down, or you're racing, then I think that you could say, you know what, a mask is recommended, but it doesn't have to be done. However, if it's students that are in the team area, if it's students that are coming back up for awards, if it's students that are cheering on their friends in one race or the other, I think now we go much more to that required, as they are non-participating, as in they've done their warm-up, they've done their race, they've done their cool down, they've done their stretches. Now they're in this mode. Is that correct?
Yes, and consistent with that, we've talked to some coaches that have said, well, you know, with those requirements and the social distancing that everybody's trying to practice, I probably need 2 tents now instead of 1 to allow those students that opportunity to practice good social distancing.
I'd say some of my good friends in the San Antonio area might be more than 2. It might be 4 or 5 by the time they get done putting it all back together. A little hill. But again, I think it's very important. Can a runner run with a face mask on? Obviously, the answer to that is yes, if they so choose. I personally could not have done that, but I think there are those that are much more in shape than I was that could do that. Managers and team gatherings. I'm just going to throw this out there because I think it's got cut in another slide. You know, as we get ready to go race or whatever, the optics, and that's a big word, it's what people see. It's that we take the pictures where we do the team huddle, where we've got all the kids armed shoulder to shoulder, hugging each other. That's where we go into our prayer circle or whatever. It's not saying don't have the prayer opportunity, not saying don't have the last word of encouragement. What we are saying is we need to social distance a little bit more. Even though we're outside, we need to be social distancing so that we are representing. So more questions on that. If we get them, we're fine. Give us a call, 254-947-9268, or drop us that email, info@taps.biz. Robert?
All right, thank you, Brian. We'll jump to our next topic, which is uniform allowances. Brian, visit with us about that.
The only thing that's really come up on the uniforms is students, if they so choose, it will be November. They can wear them long sleeves, long pants. If they're in the undergarment, then that undergarment should be the color of the top as best as you can. So if you're dark on top, stay dark. If you're white, stay white. But that knowing that we're moving back into November, we've had a good run of good temperatures, but this may be the year that it turns cold early. It sure turned cold on fall soccer last year. So in that situation, you may need a little bit more. And I do know that parents, probably more so than coaches, are a little worried about the contact opportunities. Make sure we're not, you know, again, it's hard when you're at a cross country meet because we're so used to, hey, it's time to go run. We've done our warm up with or without our warm ups, and now we just go throw them in a pile. You know, your clothes kind of need to social distance too. If you watch the NBA and the WNBA, they've got their own little changing stations. It's gone to the extent of being extreme. I'm not saying we will be extreme, but I think we definitely need to show caution on that one.
Yeah, and I think as Brian says, we're just managing risk everywhere we can, and that's the name of the game. The statistics and all the things that are going on. There's a lot of small things that we can do that will make these things go better and will help put the numbers in our favor, and that's what our goal is as we move forward. I'm gonna tell you, like everybody else in the civilized world has said, sanitize hands every chance you get. Make sure that you have product available for the students and the coaches. When you have a break, we're constantly keeping the hands clean, making sure that we stay on top of that. When we get on the bus, when we go to travel is up to local control. And again, we're not going to tell you how many kids in a seat or how to do that. We're going to, you know, we've had people call us. We say, hey, here are some of the other, you know, guidelines that we've seen. But whether you carpool or you get on a bus, we do suggest making sure that people are sanitizing their hands or wearing face masks in the bus. But again, those are just recommendations that we have. Again, try to manage the risk every chance you have, every spot you have. It'll help get us through this as we move through. We have a good partner when you do have to travel overnight, Red Pin Travel, which also has a new service that they're going to be doing this year. And Kelly Ditta has looked at what we do at TAPS and spent the first year learning about us, and she's made some changes that are going to be very helpful to us. So when you do have to do that overnight trip, or when we see you down there at State, Red Pin Travel can help you mitigate cost and make it a little bit easier. Go ahead, Will. Yes, we thank Kelly with Red Pin Travel, and again, in this very unusual year, she's probably somebody that can help you out. Whether we have a change to another location or something happens, or you have cancellations, they're standing there and they're supporting us. So again, making sure that your money's protected and making sure that you have more time to devote to the things you want to do instead of having to call around to all the hotels. But Red Pin Travel is a good sponsor, and give them a chance, and I think it'll be worth your effort. And Robert's going to talk a little bit about fans.
All right, thank you, Steve. To kind of wrap up this section here, what's been on everybody's radar as we've looked at potential scenarios for our fall activities. Fans is always an important part of our events. We've had great turnout at our state cross country meet the last few years. A great venue. It's a great opportunity for fans. There are some restrictions out there. The guidelines that we published last Friday, once again, we're not going to jump to the website, but it's in that same location we jumped to earlier. Go to the TAPS website, go to the right there where it's TAPS in the news, and look for that post that says TAPS 2020 Return to Action. Within that document, there's a whole page of guidelines and protocols that we've published with regard to fans and spectators. Those are some guidelines that if you were to host a meet or host something at your school, that we would expect you to follow and have in place. A lot of those you'll see if you read through that document are tied to being very much aware of what the local restrictions are in your area with regard to gatherings, with regard to capacity of stadiums or venues. So keep that in mind, but that's where you can find that information. It is available there. And as always, reach out to our office if you have any questions. We're going to jump next, talk a little bit about our championships coming up. So Brian, share with our listeners some of the thoughts we have on our championship this year.
About the same time as we realized that the state track championships weren't going to occur, we started looking forward to the cross country championships. And Jimmy Stewart dealt the timing, great hand there, been around TAPS and helped us out so many ways. Tom Hill, our meet director, meet supervisor at Doyle, our office here, Robert, Steve, and I, we've been planning for this meet since mid-May. And every day it seems like a new wrinkle comes, and that's okay. But one of the things, we did move the date to November 2nd. The reason was to give us a little bit more time in the season. The UIL adjusted their dates back up to us, so they're the weekend before for districts. So we're all in line about with where that last invitational meet would hold. You know, I'm kind of torn because we're sitting here talking about sanitizing your hands and sanitize and clean. And the first thing you normally see when you drive up to a cross country meet for TAPS is a big line of porta potties. So understand that even down to that detail, we're trying to figure out how to do the best we can to keep the spread of disease and germs to a bare minimum. Our championship, we've looked at many options. Jimmy and I were conversing today by email, and we'll do more later on about how to start. Are we going to do a stagger start? Are we going to do a wave start? Are we going to do a team start? You know, all of those things. We did waves in 1976, so it's not like we can't go back and do them again. There's been other options as we come through. It just means a little bit more emphasis on the timing, and I think we'll be good to go. I think that we're looking at hosting the championship very much like we have. Going back up to our earlier question, will we have an hour between races? I don't foresee that right now. I think that we would have contiguous races all the way through. It's just a matter of how we flight them and how they leave and where they have to finish. So we may have 2 finish lines, or we may have 3, depending on what would give us the social distancing at the back end. We're also relying on Children's Health Andrews Institute and Jody and his group down there in Waco to make sure from the trainer standpoint that our start, our finish, that we have the best opportunity to take care of business when the kids come through the championships as we can. So we've looked at a lot of options. I will tell you the 2 options right now that are not favorable for me is to do it like a time trial. Show up and run it, and then we'll compare your times later. That's been suggested. I don't know that I'm really a fan of that format. If it comes to it, that's definitely way down the list. And the other is to do it virtually. And I don't know that I'm in that mode yet either, where put your Fitbit or your Apple Watch on, you hit start, it tracks you across the course. Problem with doing it virtually or doing a time trial is those stinking golf balls hurt. And I don't know that if we were able to get out on Cottonwood, they're going to close the whole golf course down just so folks can come out there and run for a week. So I think we'd be dodging too many obstacles. But that being said, going on, remember that we do not have a qualification for the meet. You are eligible to enter up to 7 boy and 7 girl runners for the meet. So the district championship or your district placing does not affect whether or not you can come run at the TAPS state meet. Race orders have been approved already. We did that after last year's meet. Somewhere they'll be in the meet information as posted on the TAPS website. So those orders are there. Robert, I think that's true.
Yes,
I'm not mistaken.
It is. They're on there. If you go to the cross country page and click on that championship information, the race order is listed there.
Again, the next question has come up, what if we can't compete on championship day? And unfortunately this year, cross country is just a race where you need to be able to race. You need to be there on the same day, just like track, and be in the same meet. So I don't look at it as having alternative opportunities. I think if you can make it on the race day, you make it, and if you can't, you can't. I'm just gonna leave it on a positive note, just so y'all will understand. We really missed you at track. We miss all of our old friends. We can't wait to see you again. If you haven't been to a TAPS cross country or track meet, we can't wait to meet you and then be able to say old friends and see you again. So we're going to jump down a slide here. I'm going to give you the contact info. It's www.taps.biz. Phone number is 254-947-9268. Even though we're sitting up here on the 4th floor of the Texas Motor Speedway Towers in Fort Worth, we still carry that Central Texas number, 254-947-9268. And our email is info@taps.biz. So it was a little humorous the other day. I did have a call, very concerned and very well-intentioned. Wanted to make sure that the state track, the state cross country meet would be held at a location that had no COVID reports. And so my check today before we jumped on, there are 4 places in the state of Texas that have no COVID. So the first one, as you jump up there, is Loving County, and that is in the crook of going north into the Panhandle. There's one little town down there in the bottom of Loving County, so I don't think I want to go. I think our folks in El Paso, in Midland, Loving County wouldn't be that bad a choice for them. The other next one coming up would be Sterling County, again out there in that woods, and I've actually been there and been on the trace there. It would be a hard course, but there's no place to spend the night. And then the next one is going to be King County. I think when you look at King County, it's going to be way out in West Texas as well. And then my favorite of all, if I had to go run, if you've ever been to the Gale Borden County Invitational, it is one heck of a meet, and it's not flat. It looks like West Texas would be flat, but it's not. So I kind of laughed when I looked at the little barn up there on the top left of that screen. I think I remember that barn, and it might have been one of the few buildings that was still standing out there other than the school at Gale Borden County. But our friends out there have always been good. So we're going to try to keep our meet in Central Texas. We're going to do our best to be back at Cottonwood if the McLennan County authorities and the City of Waco authorities allow. I'll give you one last thing here. If you've got any questions, please pop them into the webinar. If not, reach out to us at info@taps.biz. I was kind of hoping that we'd have the first person drop in and send us an email at info@taps.biz with their cross-country meet information, so I could give a shout out to them and say, hey, here's the first meet that we've received. Unfortunately, we haven't received that yet. So if you're hosting that meet and you're driving your car, listening to us on your iPhone, and you're just waiting to send that information in, send us your meet information to info@taps.biz. If you're going to put it up on athletic.net, that's great. But do me a favor and please send us that so we can remind folks to find that link. Robert, Steve, anything else before we leave today?
I think we're good. We don't see any more questions. Like Brian mentioned, you can shoot those to us here at the office, or give us a call. We'll be glad to help.
Yeah. Y'all have a good afternoon. We'll hand it over to John.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Brian and Robert. Thanks everybody in the office for helping today. Folks, once again, this has been recorded. You're going to get a link tomorrow. It'll be sent to the same address you used to register for this webinar. It's just we have so many webinars today and this week, so it's taking us a little bit longer to get the recordings up. If you would like to document continuing education, I've got a handout in the handout section for you that's good for 2 hours. There's also going to be a link to download that in the recording that you get tomorrow. So if you don't get it today, don't worry. And if you still can't find it, just send us an email. I'll leave this open for a few minutes for people to download that certificate if they need it. Otherwise, you folks have a good day.